frustrated. Hello to my loneliness. I guess.
Hey guys, Eric here in the school garden. Thank you so much for tuning in to another video. I am Eric again. I am one of the education specialists for Easton Banks Learning and Life Center, and welcome to one of the gardens that we help oversee. Before we get into today's video, I want to make sure that you subscribe, like, and comment, share this video, and don't forget to click the notification bell either in the left or right corner of your screen. And make sure to follow us on our socials. We can be found on Instagram and Facebook at EBLLCINC and on TikTok at Project Grape. Now let's get into today's video. So I have about 4 tomatoes here. They're all, I think, 2 different varieties. I have Mortgage Lifter, and I believe these 2 are cherry tomatoes. And as you can see, the container that they are in is very small, which means that their roots have grown around it like so. And so if I were to leave this tomato in this container for at least 2 more weeks, then the tomato plant itself would be root bound. And root bound means that any plant that is in a container for a long amount of time, the roots are spiraling, trying to find their way out of that container, but eventually they can't because they're in a container. So in order to allow your tomato plant to get larger as well as be healthy, you want to make sure that you insert them into a larger container. So this container versus this one, you can see this square plant container here will allow for the roots to grow larger and have more space, eventually providing more space up top for the green part of the tomato. So I'm just going to add in some of our seed starting mix into this container, and then I'll water it in, and then I'm going to go ahead and finish off the other 3 tomatoes in the same way. In this container here, I have about 2 gallons almost of water. Another way to make sure that you have healthy and large tomatoes that can provide you large harvests full of like juicy plump tomato fruits, you want to make sure that you're feeding your tomatoes. So after we transplanted the tomatoes, we then go in with this Dr. Earth's Pure Gold Pump and Grow all-purpose plant food. It's 1:1:1, which means that it has equal amounts of nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Okay, and I'm just going to pour just a tad bit. It's going to be like a teaspoon into this container, and that's all we need because the fertilizer will be diluted in this water. It's important that you trellis in your garden. Now, if you were here on our channel, if you have been a subscriber for quite a while, I believe last summer in one of the school gardens, we did not trellis initially when we put the tomato plants in the ground, and at least a month afterwards, the tomatoes got very wild, and it was very difficult to then go in and try to put a trellis system in place around the tomatoes. So when you put your tomato plants in, have an idea of what type of trellis you're going to do. We are doing the Florida weave right now with these tomatoes that you see on screen, but you can use zip ties, you can use this little fabric cotton string that we have, you can use wiring, fencing, but you just want to make sure that you have a sustainable, stable trellis in place for your tomatoes. Another way to ensure that you are going to get a successful harvest full of big and juicy tomatoes is to make sure that you are pruning your tomatoes throughout the stages of their growth. With the soil, there's always going to be bacteria and fungus in your soil. And when it rains or when you water and you do not have some type of mulch down, whether that be pieces of wood, straw, or leaves, that soil splashes back on your tomato leaves, and then the bacteria has access to your tomato plant. So to prevent any splashback, you want to make sure that you mulch, but that you also prune the leaves that are closest to the soil level. So here we have our lovely homestead tomato plant, and this whole trellis has tomatoes in our fabric containers. And what I'm going to do, you're going to see me go through each container and make sure that I prune from the base of the plant all the way up at least 10 inches. And I'm going to just snip and remove all of the foliage to prevent any early stage of bacteria to start forming and causing problems on our tomatoes. It's important that you choose a well-rounded mulch for your garden. In our garden, we use mainly straw, only because it is a more inexpensive option that gives you more for your buck. But also, if you put a large amount down, it keeps the soil moist, and it maintains that moisture for a longer period of time versus wood chips. Because if wood chips can get in your soil, it can take away the nitrogen, and that's mostly because the microorganisms that have the job of breaking down those large pieces of wood, they need the nitrogen, so the nitrogen will not be readily available for your plants. So think about using straw in your garden. Quick tip: when you are looking at your tomatoes, you'll see a little extension that looks like this. This is not a leaf. This is called a sucker. So you want to make sure that you take these off as well. You just pinch them off. These will suck so much of the energy. That's why it's called a sucker. They'll suck so much energy from your tomato plant, because this will actually grow another extension that will eventually produce flowers. So you want to prune this off at the beginning stages of your tomato growth. Once your tomato gets big enough, you can leave these on. Oh, I dropped it. You can leave these on, and once they get big enough, take it off and put it in a container of water, and then you'll have an extra tomato plant. The last thing that you can do to make sure that you have a great tomato harvest this year is to make sure that you are pollinating your tomatoes. So the fun thing about tomato plants is that they have flowers that consist of both male and female parts. So all you have to do is just shake the plant. Well, shake the flower. Once you shake that flower and tap it gently, you have pollinated your tomato plant. And you want to make sure that you do it for all of the tomatoes that have flowers on them. That's the video, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's video. Let us know what types of tomato plants that you are growing this year. Let us know what other tips that you guys have that have allowed you to have a great harvest in your garden of tomatoes. This year we have a lot of different tomatoes growing. We have Amana tomatoes, Homestead, Mortgage Lifter tomatoes, Red Cherry, and the list goes on and on. Let us know if our tips have helped you, and keep us updated on the growth of your tomatoes. Until the next video, we'll see you all later in the garden. Bye.